So first of all, welcome everybody. This is the first of 3 workshops that I'm going to be leading on, which are really here to help you with your application. Just to set the tone, the assumption that we're coming with on this is that you've never applied for an Innovate UK grant before, and you may not have applied for an academic grant or this sort of innovation style grant. So what we are doing here is trying to give you some tools and tips about how to approach the questions, how to approach your application. So the first thing I'd like to say is that there are no silly questions. If you have any questions, type them in the box. We'll try to review these as we go along. And at the end, we'll have sort of a free Q&A. And then what I'll ask you to do is put your hands up using the little icon at the bottom of the screen. And the reason we'll do that is it basically means that your face and your name comes up first on the screen so I can see who's got their hands up. Feel free to switch off the Zoom camera. It can be, a long day in front of the cameras, and not everybody needs to be on the whole time. So just whatever you're comfortable with, whatever works for you. The format and style, we want to have it it's the way we're approaching this is like a workshop. We're trying to sort of make it quite a discussion approach into what we're doing. And I think just to position it very clearly, this is about our opinion about how you should approach the questions, what sort of things we know that assessors might be looking for. And so the advice that we give people who come to us at the KTN for applications. So hopefully you'll find it a really useful and practical session. That's our aim. So first of all, I'd like to introduce or get everybody from the KTN and Innovate UK team to introduce themselves. I'll start with myself. My name's Emma Fadlon. I've been at the KTN for about 5.5 years now. And I am in an investment team. So I tend to work with companies who are looking for funding and finance, sort of investment at the early stage. I've been involved with the Women in Innovation program since it started, and have delivered a number of workshops, practical workshops along the way. So I tend to work with companies who are early stage and looking to really sort of understand how can they secure that initial sort of seed funding and that kind of up to that first Series A investment funding. Next, I'd like to introduce Matt, my co-presenter today, to introduce himself.
Yeah, hello everybody, my name's Matt. I'm part of KTN's Enabling Technologies team. So within the team, we look at things like sort of lasers, fibers, sensors, electronics and things like that. But more widely, I work across KTN, working with lots of companies that are looking to make connections and get funding, and I've helped lots of companies do that, and I'll probably have a different sort of perspective on things. Also worked with Emma a lot, helping companies as well. And seen lots of applications, good ones and bad ones, and so hopefully share some of that insight with you all today.
Next, Solène, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. My name is Solène, and I'm the new project manager for equality, diversity, and inclusion at KTN. And so I look after the Women in Innovation and the Young Innovator programs, amongst other ED&I initiatives. So if you are successful through the application process, then I would be working with you in terms of delivering workshops and all of the content that follows into the wonderful program.
Thanks. And last but absolutely not least, I'd like Rachel from Innovate UK to introduce herself.
Thanks, Emma, and welcome everyone on the call today. It's fantastic to join you today. So I'm Rachel, and I've also recently joined Innovate UK a couple of months ago, and I look after the targeted program. So I'm Equality, Diversity and Inclusion program lead. And as Solène mentioned, I work on the Young Innovator and the Women in Innovator programs. And if you're successful, we'll be supporting you through your project's time with Innovate UK. You're all welcome on the call today. Thank you, Emma.
You're welcome. So, first slide, moving on to the content. So the agenda is as follows. It's really important to understand that this award is geared up for innovators who are looking to scale up and grow their innovative company or looking to carry out an innovative project within that company. So what we're trying to do is to help you understand how to position what you're doing in context of the application. So we're not funding the business, we're funding the project, the activity within the business. And I think that's a very important thing to sort of take on board. Quite often when people first write an Innovate UK grant application, they approach it in context of, oh, you want to fund the business. So this is why my business is really, really important. And this is what you should be doing. Well, this application is very, very different. In context that it's around you as an individual, but it's also about the project that you want to run in your business over this 12-month period and how that's going to help you grow your business and help you achieve your vision for what that business should be. So this first workshop is focusing on how you put together all of your thoughts, all of your ideas around answering that question about the project and your vision for the business and the vision for yourself within that as the leader, the future leader in your business. So we're hoping to give you insight and tools on how to scope out the project that you're looking to get funded, how to present the value proposition of your business, of your products, your goods or your services, describe the project in context of your ambitions to grow and scale your business. So this is about you and how you see this. It's very much about funding individuals, not just the business. And as well, it's there to explain how, for you to explain how you will benefit from the non-financial support that's available. And again, this is around the soft skills and the hard skills for you to grow as an individual. And as I said, there'll be a Q&A. So the first thing I want you to think about as new applicants is the structure. This is not a typical Innovate UK application. There are really three sections. There's the application questions, some which are scored, some which aren't. There's a video pitch that you have to present, and then there's the finances. And follow everything that's written in the guidance document about what you need to put in there. The other thing is look out for the closing date at 11 a.m. 11:01, not good enough. If you try to do it at 10:59, you're likely to fail. So please give yourself enough time. The other thing is read the guidance notes and the questions and make bullet points. Look at the keywords. Capture your initial thoughts and identify gaps as you're going through them. It's really, really important that you do that and just keep on building on that. So take a notebook. I work really well with Post-its. So I do loads of Post-its and I can shuffle them around and do things with them. Just make sure you have some way of visually capturing everything as you're going through, because you might miss things. When you go through and you say, I'm just going to focus on that question, you forget to focus on all of that information that is actually captured in there, which may inform how you should answer that question and where the information should be. That question is scored individually. So if you put the wrong information in that box and you don't include it in the box where it should be, then nobody can score it. They can only score what you've written in that box. And that sometimes happens where people put in some stuff around the market in the wrong box, and then they think, well, I put that in the other question, and why didn't they score it in this question? Well, it wasn't there, and we can only score what we see. That's how the assessors are told to score. And the other thing is give yourself enough time to review before you submit. You will not be able to do this application in 2 weeks. The reason why the competition opened in August and closes in October is that it takes that long to get your thoughts together, get all of the resources and the capabilities identified, who it is you want to work with, get an agreement about what you want to do and how you're going to work. So the most important thing is give yourself enough time to review, before you submit, and think about the writing time. And you probably want to give 2 weeks where you don't have to really don't have to do anything on it. Just clear your mind, give yourself a week, and then come back to it and just read it again and say, is this what I wanted to say? Have I made it clear? Get other people to read it and give their feedback as well. You know, have I communicated these things? Give them the tick list of all the key points you need to have in there based on the application. But if it comes to somebody like 24 hours before you've got to submit it, then nobody's going to be able to give it the right time and the due respect that you deserve, you know, for the application. So that's my handy hints on timing, planning, and approach. And as I said, I'm assuming that you're all completely new to this, and that, you know, you would not understand necessarily the length of time that you need to plan and to write those questions. It doesn't look like many words, but it's actually how you write succinctly a lot of information in a small number of words is what we're actually reading and assessing. So, first thing about the application, it's an exam and it's a story. So, like all exams, there are keywords and answers are contained in the questions. And I'm going to go through those for the questions that are relevant to this workshop and just give you some hints. There's a lot of technique for the individual questions, but they also require a really compelling narrative. So you need to think about how you're telling the story, how you make it really clear, and what it is that you are trying to communicate. So what is the message, the big message, and then what are the key facts that we're looking for to be scored. So you've got 5 scored questions and some appendices that they've recommended, where they say we suggest that read that as please do. It'll strengthen your application if you have those in there. There's fixed time and word count, and it's variable. So make sure you've got the right number across them. I've put what the time and the word counts are against each of the questions, but I may have made a mistake. So check through in the application, double check it. And that could be part of your post-it for that question, how you're doing that. And the other thing I'd like to say is imagine that you are going to receive all these really, really great applications, and you've actually got to decide how you're going to score them and who is going to be the top scoring one. What impression will you make? Because how you write it, the style, the content is going to help an assessor score and give you the appropriate scores. So you will make a much stronger and better impression with a well-written application than if you have one that's rushed or you haven't really articulated or thought about some of the questions with the same amount of time. So just think like an assessor when you're doing this and think, well, if I'm scoring, the one I'm going to score is the one where I can go tick, 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 tick. They've answered all of these questions in there. Not one that's reading and saying like, this is all really interesting, but have they told me this and have they told me that? Because there's so many of you, you know, you are in a really competitive landscape. And so you need to make a really good impression. And what else should you include? Well, you've got the project summary. It is not counted as a score, but it's the first thing that I'm going to read. And I want to say, wow, I want to say, I really get this. And also, I really like this. And that's about giving that good impression. Now, there's a writing style that I would recommend, which is your classic kind of informative editorial style. So we call it The Economist. If any of you have ever read The Economist magazine, it's a really succinct way of communicating some quite important sort of governmental, social, societal kind of activities and thought pieces. And they tend to write in a very short sentence structure. So it's very active and it's short sentences, 9, 10, 12 words, but not lots of sentences with brackets and commas and things. So try and make your sentences really punchy in that kind of editorial style. I won't go into too much detail, but you've got a public description. That's 400 words. It's not assessed, but it's what published when you're successful. And then the first go or no go stage gate question. And this is literally a yes, no. Are you in scope? So make sure that the way you explain your project and why you're applying is that you actually hit all of the scope points that are in the application. You've got 400 words to do that. I said it's not marked, but it's a yes/no question, in the sense that, you know, you can be rejected before you start. If an assessor looks at it and says, well, I don't think this is in scope. So that's the general parts of the questions. I'm now going to move on to the next sort of section, which is how to start answering the questions directly. So I've just had a look at the chat. We've got no questions, so I will start. Leader and role model. So the first thing that you're going to be asked about, and what we want to know about you, is your ambition. What's your ambition as for the company, and what's your ambition as a future leader, as a female innovator? And this is new to this competition, this approach in the Women in Innovation. We've not done this before, so I've got no reference point as to what it's like, but I can say that I've seen them for the young innovators, and they've been really, really fabulous. You really get a chance to understand and feel who that person is, who you are, and most importantly is this: your motivation, what inspires you, and what you're passionate about. Really make sure that with the video you are able to bring that forward. You know, we really want to see who you are, and we want to engage with you, and this video is your chance to do that. So the question that we're answering here, for those of you who've got the application in front of you, is your potential to be a leader, and as what role model, as a role model to inspire other women. So this competition is not just to develop you, but for you to be an ambassador. You know, you're really passionate. It's an ambassador to other female founders, to other women coming into your technology sector. It's about motivating people and really bringing that forward. And that's what we're looking for as well. So 34% of the question, of the total marks, rather, this question for a 3-minute video. What sort of things do people usually sort of think about with this? They say, oh, I'm not the finished product. How can I be there? We don't need you to be the finished product. This is the whole aim of the competition. We do want to know about the impact on you and your company, how it's going to help you be a better leader, your personal development, role model, what EDI challenges there are in your sector or area. So that's equality, diversity, and inclusivity challenges, and any additional information that you think is relevant to your application. So that's the guidance documents. We'll give you a little bit more detail. And I think what I'd like to emphasize in this video, that this is both for developing your technical, your business capabilities, but for also developing your soft skills as a leader, and also the hard skills. So I need to know about marketing, or I need to know about IP, and it's going to be relevant to me, but I really don't know this. I don't have that business experience. So put it all in. Let us know what you want. So I've tried to break it down into these areas. I looked at the keywords and what I thought you should include. So there's an introduction to you and your business. There's how you're going to be the champion for EDI, and the keywords were sector, innovation area, region, any regional importance, demographics. So is it for women, young people? Is it around a social or an ethnic or a cultural group? Or as I said, you know, if it's a sector, is it a business area that's got very poor representation, or subsectors? So my hint is, when you start doing these things, is make a list and just think all of the ideas that might go in there. Go and Google and see what people have said. What are the challenges for women in, I don't know, nuclear physics, or women in engineering? What activities are going on? What sort of speakers are out there? What sort of things are they saying need to be done, and how are these leaders doing things that really inspire you? Always look at, you know, it's always easy to see who inspires you. What is it that they're doing to change the thinking, getting the paradigm shift, and, you know, what is it that works, and how can you apply their approach and their inspiring activities to what you're doing with your innovation? And then think about how you're going to deliver these things and why you're going to be delivering them. Are they actually going to have an impact? Because you can give us a list of activities, but we need to know, why is this the right way to do this? Is it really best to do something online? Is it best to do things by face? Is it best to do it through white papers? Is it best to do it through these particular channels? Because that's where the audience is. So tell us why. Skills and capabilities is around evidence, aptitude, potential to lead, inspire, communicate, and willingness. So this is about thinking how you use the soft skills training and also the mentoring and the other capabilities that are listed on the application. And again, if you go to the application, you will have a tab. I don't know if you can see this here. This is a printout of the application, not very good, but you've got a set of tabs. And you've got scope, eligibility scope, dates and summary, and you'll find all the lists of activities within there. And difference to you personally. So this is about you, equality, diversity, inclusivity, activities, motivation. And again, think about, how this is going to help you deliver your project, soft skills. Is it going to give you access to training, to networks, personal development? What are those things that are really important to you? So that's what I would be thinking about when I'd be thinking about writing my 3-minute pitch that I'm going to deliver to camera. And sort of handy hints around that: rehearse it, practice it, feel confident about delivering it. Do make sure that you follow the guidance that Innovate UK have given about how to record it and how to upload it. They will only listen to 3 minutes. They will stop the video at 3 minutes. And having supported the young innovators, I can tell you they stop it at 3 minutes. So just make sure you've got the key messaging in 3 minutes. Need. So this is where I'm going to bring in my colleague Matt as well to start helping me around this, because need and the challenge is really describing the problems you're solving and telling us why it's a problem. What is that big societal problem? So I'm going to start off with an example. I used to work in a government-funded research institute called Pirbright, and we developed a lot of diagnostics and vaccines for basically for production animal health, so cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens. And a lot of the work we did was actually in emerging diseases and in developing countries. So it was really important that any innovations that we developed, any technology, was suitable for the laboratories where the technology was going to be deployed. And there was no point on having a really fancy DNA or RNA test in a laboratory when actually the vets and the laboratories that are going to do the assessment don't even have 24/7 electricity, and they can't guarantee the fridges are going to be working. And most of the work is being done out in the field because they're working with pastoralists who are migrating around depending on where the food is at the time. So a lot of the technology that out there was absolutely fantastic, and we developed them for our use. But when we were developing these products for other countries, other applications, we were very clear about who it's for, who's going to be using it, how they're going to be using it, what barriers will they encounter or will they need to overcome in order to use that technology, how will we need to educate people to use it, and how will we need to educate them in order for us to get the answers back from that technology so we can make considered decisions around vaccination and animal movement and animal disease. And a lot of that was around how your customer is going to use it and access this. So I think it's really important that, and the learning message from me to you is that with your application, make sure that the need that you've identified, i.e. the problem you're solving, and the proposed approach is aligned to the market, the customer, and the end user that you're describing in your application. Because sometimes we will get applications where they're developing a great technology, but actually we know that the customer they said they're going to target first can't actually adopt that technology. So I'm going to hand over to Matt now. And in context of approaching that question, the need and the challenge, what sort of advice can you give people around things to think about and focus on?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. I think and this will have come across from the video at the start, and I was thinking about this in terms of credibility and authenticity and things like that. So when you're explaining the need, the more that you can actually say, and I know this because, or we have found that because. So Emma was talking about, your customers or potential customers, and, if you're evidencing that you've spoken to them, it's always useful to be able to sort of get external data like that. So who you've spoken to, almost certainly, when you're talking about societal, environmental, economic challenge, there's likely to be some government strategies or reports or evidence that you can point to as well. So bring those in. There's usually something around that you can that you can use. And impacts, it's interesting. What potential negative impacts have you considered? And probably a tip here is, to be upfront. Not everything is all going to be squeaky clean and rosy and whatever. So there might be some negative aspect. And if you think, well, I won't mention it, then the reviewer is going to go, oh, they haven't mentioned it, maybe they don't know about it, or, so you can talk about negative things, but how you're mitigating against them. So just sort of include it all. And similarly, you'll be asked throughout the application, and we'll be coming back to this point, I'm sure, where it's asking you about things. Are there challenges? Are there negative impacts? It's asking you, the guidance is asking you for a reason, and it wants you to put that into your answer. So yeah, so I would say be specific, show, don't tell. Describe where you've got the evidence for this, and bearing in mind, as a point we've come back to, you've got a 500 word count. You should be trying to cram it into that without being verbose. If you're, as a reviewer, you see somebody's put 50 words in a 500 word count, they've obviously wasted some opportunity to explain how best to address that question. So I think these are points that we'll probably keep coming back to, but that's some sort of initial things to think about.
Thanks, Matt. So I had a quick look about how to approach this. So as we said, 500 words you've got for this one. It's 17% of the overall marks. So the first thing is read the innovation strategy. Where do you fit into it? As much as you can pull out from that, then there's going to be a tick, tick, tick. And you say, this is aligned to the innovation, this, decarbonization strategy under the foundation industries or whatever. It's out there, it's published. If you Google it, you'll find it. It's very easy. The other thing that's a real big tick box as well is sustainable development goals. So those are the 17 UN goals. If you address any of these, that can also be very useful to put in, because those are industrially, as in the industrial world has recognized that these are really important targets, and all of the activities in the innovation strategy, when you look at it, actually are aligned to the SDGs as well. So it doesn't hurt to think about those as well. So impact. Okay, so hint, consider what activities you're going to do. What are the outputs from those activities? And then what are the impacts? Now, an output is what you deliver. An impact is what is the consequence of that. And quite often people end up describing impacts as outputs and activities as outputs. And what we want to do is actually have more of that. How is that going to change things down the line? And because some of them could be social, societal, some of them could be business impacts. It open the impact by having an MVP. It means we can go to speak to an investor and get funding, or we can test this product in this particular setting, and nobody will talk to us or even see us until we've done that. And they've told us that when we did our market research. So for me, how to go about it, how to answer that, it's will it be delivered? Have you got a project plan that's set up in such a way that I can actually see you're going to deliver that output in that time frame? Why are you choosing that particular approach? Whether it's a technological approach, and what channel might you be looking at for the impact? So when I talk about channel, I mean, what's the route to the market? What's the route to the customer, route to the testing that you'd be looking at? So just start thinking, asking yourself those questions. We are looking for local, national, and international impacts. So the keywords there are society, economy, and environment. So think about the priorities that you have with your innovation. Is it around, changing society, health, well-being, decarbonization, net zero, whatever? Is it about improving a community? Is it a social enterprise and actually there is a community of people that's going to do that? Or is it something that's going to make my life better as an individual? All of the above could be parts of it. It doesn't matter, but just make sure that you really bring that out and that you show us how that fits into the UK, into the wider kind of international community and scalability. And as Matt said, negative impact, super important. The key word here is negative. Now, what is negative? Negative doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just means that it's a risk or it's a challenge that you have to accommodate in your business. So it could be political. So one of the things that happened in Africa when they jumped straight onto digital banking is that it had a huge impact on the basically in some countries there were a lot of backhanders going on, so people were paid salaries, they got paper paychecks, and then there was like bribes and things that were given, and suddenly these bribes weren't happening, and in some countries it was actually part of the government factored that into how they salaried public government workers. And that top slicing wasn't happening, and suddenly that had a negative impact on society, and the adoption of that technology was impacted upon that. I mean, there are case studies like that you can see. There's environmental impacts, that you might be doing something that is going to affect the environment in some way. So what are you going to do to mitigate that risk? There could be a technical impact. If I have to change the technology that I'm working on, there is a huge impact, negative impact. If I have to retrain everybody, I may have to change completely the way I'm doing things. So there could be a huge culture change in the way I'm doing things. And it could be that you could lead to a legal change in the way things are being done as well. So that by changing things that people have to do that, everybody has to change things in a certain way. There's a cultural change, and that could be quite a negative impact in some areas and some settings. So you just need to think about those kind of things. For me, what I tend to look at is the cost to the adopt and the culture change as a negative impact. Because if I have to onboard your technology, I need to drop everything that I've invested in, and I need to change the way I do everything, and I need to do all of these new health and safety processes and new training, and I have to record things in a different way, and I have to follow these new legal processes. That's a really negative impact in my business because there's a cost to that business. But if the upside is that I'm going to get a return on my investment, or 3 or 5 years, or I address a technical challenge that I've got that I really need to address, then that's a really great thing. So just think about what could be perceived as a negative impact in what you're doing. Solution. So this is a really important question, because what we're asking you is to describe what features you are developing in your technology and your innovation, and what benefits you're going to be driving. So there's the features and benefits of your innovation, and where it sits in the market is what we're asking in this question. Now, the one thing I always say to everybody I work with is that customers buy benefits, they don't buy features. So you could have the nicest, whizziest features in the world. We've all got smartphones. How many of us use all of the features that are on there? How many of us even know what the features are that are on there? I just use what I want, and I choose my phone because it gives me the benefits of being able to do the things I need to do. And I don't care if it's got all these other whiz bang features and things in there. I don't need them. But I buy it because it sits and solves a problem for me, and it sits comfortably in the way I lead my life. So one of the things I'd like you to do when you think about answering the question about your solution is understanding what commercialization is. So we are funding your idea or business opportunity in this this award. And we're not funding the whole of the business, as I said beforehand. So I want you to frame your answer and think about framing your answer in context of your overall business, but tell me what it is that I'm going to get as a benefit by you developing those features of your technology or your innovation, your process. So commercialization is a process by which new or improved technologies, products or services are brought to the market. So that's the overall agenda. This is around women in innovation, and you're looking to commercialize your innovation. Now, some of you could be at the very early stage and you are still developing your technologies and your processes, or you could be at that stage where you're looking to actually commercialize it and exploit it, or you're at the stage where you've started it and you're looking to scale. We don't mind where you are. What we are interested in is how this funding and how this package of support is going to help you move through those stage gates. So if you're at that very early stage and you're moving to the next one, then the impact is going to be that you can start thinking about your commercialization strategy. If you've already commercialized it and you're looking to move on, it's about how you're going to scale your business and do these really exciting things. So don't be put off and think, oh, am I too early? Am I too late? It's about how you're transitioning your idea, your business opportunity over the 12 months of this funding program. So that's question 8. You've got 500 words and it's 17% of the overall score. This is very, very detailed in the application guidance. So I'm going to cover it over 2 slides. What I've done is I've sort of pasted into these 2 slides the descriptions of what they're looking for. But the key things here is what new idea or business opportunity would you like to develop with the award, and why is it a critical step for your business? Now, new is not new to you, it's new to the sector, to the business, to the industry. So it's really important that you make it very clear that what you've got is really innovative, that there might be competitors out there, but they're not doing it the same way as you. So you've identified in question 7 why it's important to address the challenge. You may just want to refer to the key points, not repeat question 7. You will tell me about what the business need is, the technological challenge or market opportunity. You're going to tell me something about the dynamics of the market you're targeting and any other potential markets. And it could be that this year will allow you to deliver in one market and open up a new market. How are you going to improve on the nearest current state of the art, including those near market or in development? So that's your competitor landscape. And also tell us its limitations. It's not a problem, you're not going to solve all of the world's problems, but you're going to solve something that's really critical, that's important, that's going to open up a new opportunity. So if you don't tell us about the competitor marketplace, we'll think you don't know that there are competitors out there, and also you won't have the opportunity to differentiate yourself and show us what's unique and special about what you're doing. So here you're really going to start talking about your unique selling points against your competitors. So Matt, before I move on to the next section, you've reviewed sort of applications in your technology sector. What sort of common mistakes do you see with the markets and the target marketing and
So there's a few things. Firstly, again, coming back to the sort of show, not just tell. Don't say there's a tremendous market opportunity. Say we know that there is a market opportunity because we've done this research, or we've seen this, or this has been published. And when you're thinking about where the market is, think about how you segment that market, by which I mean what parts of the market. And as a simple sort of analogy that I use, it, let's say you've got a project which is around a sensor for a car tire, for example. You wouldn't say my project is about sensors for car tires. The global automotive market is worth however many quadrillion dollars it's worth. Therefore, that's my market. So your market is the sensors part of that market. and probably a very specific part of that. And it's also the part of that market that you can reasonably address. So, is your market, for example, Europe, or can you get into the Far East? So, and it's about being ambitious, but also credible and realistic. So, it's ambitious to say, yeah, we think we can take this part of the market. And again, ways to add credibility, it talks about business need. So you can say, for example, we know that, I don't know, hotels need such and such a product, and we know that because we've had conversations with, and if you can name people that you've talked to, that's great. If you can't name them, you could say, with major brands or whatever. Showing again that you understand how the market's made up. And there's on that last bullet on the slide there, you'll see how you will improve on the nearest current state of the art. And one of the absolute classic things is the reviewers will usually have a list of things that they're marking against. So the guidance will undoubtedly have asked you, what is the current state of the art? If you ignore that, when the reviewer comes to it, the reviewer's got a box saying, have the applicant demonstrated that they know what the nearest state of the art is and how they will improve on it. So if you even use the words in your application, the nearest state of the art is this, and that we know we are better than that because, or we are advancing on that. And again, it says here, including those near market or in development, if you're showing, don't ignore your competition. It's another thing I've heard from someone, it's, if you think there isn't, don't ever assume there is no competition. That's not good anyway. There's one of two things. Either the assessor will know there's competition and think you're wrong, or the assessor will think there's competition. So, always talk about how you would, where you differentiate from competition, even if actually you don't think that there currently is any. So just make it really, really easy for the reviewers. Got things that they're marking against, and that's all published in the guidance online. The scope and the criteria, and they're just marking against all of that. So repeat the language, use the same things, and as Emma said, you've got your post-its in your checklist. It's asking for this, so I'm going to say that. So those are some things to think about on that one.
Thanks, Matt. And the second part they ask you is about describing what work you've already done to respond to this. So if you've developed a prototype or an MVP, you've got some existing capability, then let us know. If you're building on an existing capability or you're building a new one, let us know. So that usually refers, you've already got a question at the beginning, whether you've received any of the Innovate UK grant applications, for example. You may have received some funding from charities. You may have put your own money in, your friends and your family. Basically, as Matt said, will the innovation focus on existing technologies in new areas, or developing new technologies for existing areas, or are you going to be really disruptive? Freedom to operate is really important. Make you more competitive. And again, EDI is really important in this question. Have a look at what they're looking for. So again, I tried to get some handy hints about how I'd break that down. Well, the first thing I'd want to know is, what's my value proposition? So make sure I've got a really clear, validated value proposition. So a value proposition is, who you are, what you do, and why you're doing it. What is the value to your customer, and what's the value to the end user? And you should usually be able to monetize that as well. And in some way, shape, or form, you'll be able to articulate that. They're in the support, additional support, there's a link to some resources to help you with that as well. So how would you do it? You do your market research and your validation to support the needs and the issues that you've identified, and what the sizes of those needs and issues are. And then you would have done some market research as well to say that the features that you're wanting to develop are going to drive the sort of benefits that your customers need. So basically you should link needs and issues to features and benefits when you do a value proposition. Market, think local, national, international. Do your sizing bottom up as well as top down, segment it. what are the customer personas you're targeting. You should know all of this. And also you should be saying what's called as a beachhead market, which is your first customer or the customer that you're targeting with your new innovation, or if you've identified a customer and you're building on that, how that works. Competitors, look at both direct and indirect. And this is where you look at what features they have. But what's more important to customers buying is the benefits that their products have. So what is the benefit of using your product with your feature set compared to using somebody else's product? So that is the question to ask yourself. Back to my trusty little firm. Why would I use Apple and not Samsung? And the other part of the questions, limitations, what have you done so far and what can you deliver in the time? So be really, really clear about the defined project, what technical and commercial deliverables you can make, and what capabilities and resources you need to access. Can you realistically deliver what you need to do? We will cover project plans and work packages in my next workshop, but they've got to be realistic, and assessors know straight away whether they're realistic or not. Freedom to operate, that's around intellectual property rights. There's local, national, and international. And how you think about that is protection strategies, ownership, management. Not all your technologies are going to be patentable, but you may have database rights. You're going to have copyright for things that you've written. You're going to have trademarks. You're going to have, if you're the first entrant into the market, then certainly building that brand value is going to be very important. And again, hint, 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 direct and indirect impacts or biases for the EDI agenda. So how are you going to design, develop, and test and deliver your product that you're not biasing that or you're excluding people? And this is back down to what I said around my healthcare. There was production animal health. If we had designed and developed tests that were designed to assume that everybody has had a Western university education, when actually the people working in the laboratory have probably had, haven't had a tertiary education, their secondary education, they're government employees at a certain level, and the way in which you design and the interface and the test has to be technically suitable for that workplace and that environment. And part of what we're delivering is to upskill people. So a lot of what we did, if everything we delivered, we thought, how can we build up that skills and capabilities so that you didn't bias, you didn't impact, and you're able to build the skills and capabilities within that country and within that workforce. And that was part of how we designed and developed, tested and delivered our diagnostics and the training that went with it. So we had a package to ensure that we didn't exclude anybody. At this point, I'm just going to stop and just go through some of the questions that we've had. So how do you know what's in and out of scope? I think that's been answered. That is on the application. If you go in there, there's a tab. If you're unsure, then go to the competitions team. Do you have to be a UK citizen? You need to have the right to work in the UK. You don't have to necessarily be a UK citizen to get a grant. Do you have to have a business? Well, the funding goes into a business, not into an individual. So yes, you will have to have a business when you start. Slides recording shared. I think we are going to be sharing everything, Solen. Yeah, so that will be there. I've got the slides as a PDF. So what else have we got? Yes, you can apply for other grants. Just remember that they do fall under de minimis and all the rest of it. So you just need to be aware of that.
I've just put in the chat, Emma, but not for the same project. So it's unlikely it would be the same project in the particular case, but you can think about a larger sort of innovation project and different aspects of it.
So this is start and end. That's a really good question, Gala. And actually the important thing is that you are very clear about what those work packages are, what you can deliver in that time frame, and they're realistic, and that you've accounted for creep in that. So we need you to be ambitious but realistic. So what you can do is say, this will move me on by this amount. And as we said, it's about moving through stage gates, not completing the whole of the project, the whole of the business. We're not funding the business, we're funding an element of that business to help you succeed in your business vision. And that's what we're looking for. So if you're not registered, come along to the work packages workshop, which I think will be the one on Friday. Would you be listing the features you want to develop? Yes, in the work packages, you would be doing that. Milestones, yeah, you could be talking about technical milestones, you could be talking about commercial milestones if they're relevant in that 12 months for you to deliver that. But if at the end of the 12 months, it allows you to go to the market with a tested, validated product so you can start getting sales, that's a milestone in itself. Research from published data, be very careful what you put in. Your appendix is very clearly defined about what you can and can't include in the appendix. You probably want to make it as succinct as possible, Michelle, when you put what research you put in there, but that is your evidence base. So do put that in, put the numbers in, date or whatever. We just need to know it's there. You can be a not-for-profit, and in fact what we're trying to do is, by changing this application process, is to have that. Though you're not-for-profit, it doesn't mean you can't make money. The problem for not-for-profits is they need to make enough money to keep going and deliver their services. So please do feel confident that you can apply as a not-for-profit. And the way in which it's structured now, and I think we can have sort of confirmation here from Rachel, is that the whole point of having the application done the way it is now is to encourage and support those kind of applications. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We've been listening to the community and listening to women, some of them on the call here today, and it's really key. We're opening up and inviting more applications across the sectors. So that's correct, yes.
Market and emerging market. Absolutely. You might be creating a market. You could be creating a product and a market space that doesn't exist. I mean, for most of us, if you look at when we graduated or we left school, the jobs that exist now didn't exist. Who would have even believed that half of these things were out there? So we are creating that market, we're creating that community. So absolutely, yes. How technical you should be is as technical as you need, but not so technical that people can't get it. This is about if you can't describe the problems you're solving and what you're doing in a non-technical way, then you need to get some help to try and sort of communicate that clearly. In your work packages, say what you're going to do, explain the key technical approaches that you might be doing. So that might be relevant, but you don't have to tell us, in fine detail, all the, the technical bits of what you're doing. Technical details compared to state of the art. Remember, it's about the features that you're developing and how those features are in there. So there's a balance between that. Matt, I mean, you're more of a technical person. Would you want to what your thoughts are around that?
In terms of how technical?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always went by the guidance of someone that might read like the New Scientist. If you're really technical, someone that might read the New Scientist, or someone that's doing their A-levels or higher, if you're in Scotland, you can, or someone that might be interested. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Tomorrow's World, but some of you that could, somebody that's maybe interested in the science, the assessors will have some scientific or the necessary technical background. They'll be selected on that basis, but yeah, you will always need to explain it. And if you might at some point be looking for investment, and certainly if you go in front of some investors, they won't necessarily have the technical background. So explain it in sufficient detail, and then actually, which covers another point about the appendix, which is where appendices are very useful. You can put more clarification and detail in the appendix, but as a rough guide, assume that the appendices get lost when the reviewer sees it, and the body of the application needs to contain the information they need. But if there does require particular technical explanation, then that can go out to the appendix. But usually, just pitch it there.
Yeah. So there's a question on dynamics of your market. So dynamics of your market is what's happening. Is it a growing market? Is it a static market? Is it a market that's being disrupted? Is it a market that needs disrupting? Is it a very innovative marketplace? It's about how it's behaving. So you may have a very static market, or one that's actually becoming smaller, and actually you're opening a new opportunity for it. So that's what we mean by dynamics of the markets. EDI, equality, diversity, and inclusivity. So that's the standard acronym. You'll see in most places now D and I, diversity and inclusivity, because equality is a little bit of a, it's shall we say, it's a quicksand if you get into that conversation. But it's very important feature of Innovate UK and government strategy. So successful video pictures, we don't have any because this is the first year we've got them, but there are videos of people talking about their business and what they're doing. So the important thing is be yourself, be enthusiastic, show us your passion, answer the questions, make sure you've got to write a script and a tick box around that.
Sorry, Emma, I just wanted to say, because this is really popular question that we're having. It's not about how the editing skill of the video. And as Emma said, it's really the passion. We want to see your potential to be a role model and to inspire other women into business innovation. I think that's the key thing, and not a very nice or very editable video. So this is the first time we're exploring this. And the key thing is to communicate that passion for that 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so Erin, can you have a business but also be a part-time job and still apply through the business? Yes, a lot of people need to do this in order to get the funding to allow them to focus full-time on it. You need to be able to have that. You need to also put a roof over your head and food under your table. We are very cognizant of that requirement. So yes, not a problem. Activities, outputs and impacts. Okay, so Charlotte, an activity is what you're going to do. So it'll be a list of tasks. Outputs will be the results of that task. So I could have a list of 10 activities, and the output of that activity is that I will have a minimum viable product. So I will do all these things to develop this, and then I've got a minimum viable product. So let's say I've got an app. At the end of these activities, I've got an app. The impact of that, having that app, is that I can know for the business, go out and test that app into that marketplace and get people to see whether that app works. So that will be the impact at that point. That's the impact of having that funding on me, that business, being able to go out there and test it and start approaching and getting customers. Now, the impact of that could be that they have a better health outcome, or they have better financial management and control. And that's what your app is aiming to do. So you need to think about what is the impact of people using that app. So sometimes an output can lead to an impact, and an impact can be an output depending on where you are. So if you've already developed your MVP and what you're doing is you're getting the funding now to be able to go out there and do the testing, your impact would be about what's the impact of people using your product and how's that working. And that impact can also be on your business, which means that you will be able to make sales, you'll be able to go out and speak to different customers, and you'll be able to approach and go out to get fundraising around that. So there's quite a lot of stuff around activities, outputs and impacts and definitions. If you sort of Google it, it's kind of one of the tough areas. When we set up programs, and Rachel will know, we have a very, very clear model we work to, where we have to define what these are going to be. And some of them are soft impacts and some of them are hard impacts. So I run an accelerator. We look for spin-out companies. We look for commercialization, but we look for more collaborations. We look for people being more confident in engaging with industry as well. We look to people having more skills in commercialization as an impact as well. So you can have hard impacts as well as soft impacts on your business. And actually part of the training you'll be getting will be a soft impact, because that will be, I will be more, the impact of me having this training will mean that I'll be more confident to go out there and speak to people, and I'll be able to go in and I will be have a more rounded person, skills, because I understand funding and finance and spreadsheets. So these are the sort of things that you could be looking at, the outcomes and the impact. Can you work full time if you complete this? Yes, absolutely. It's how do you manage your time? You just have to be able to deliver. You will have a monitoring officer. Your monitoring officer will be requiring you to deliver, and they'll be following you and supporting you. You'll also have an advisor who'll be working with you. So you'll get lots of support as well to make sure you're staying on track. And we absolutely recognize that you are you're a work in progress. It's not about you being the finished product. It's about how do we help you become that future leader that you want to be. I think it's really important to focus on that. Applications on average, there's no match funding required, Michelle. I don't know how many applications you've had on average on the competition. It's very heavily subscribed. I do know that.
Yes. So it's really subscribed, as you can see from the briefing and from even the call today. So we'll encourage and we'll give you as much support to ensure you're successful as well.
I'm going to say here that the top tips that we have is you fit the scope. So make sure you've positioned yourself that you're in scope. Agree any key points with any collaborators, partners, people are going to provide you the resources around the projects. And be clear and concise, realistic plan, be convincing. Risk and innovation will cover, quantify and justify any statements you make. Matt's reiterated that multiple times. Give us the numbers. Don't just tell us, show us. I think is a really, really important message. I actually wrote that down from Matt's statement. I thought it was really important. Check all the deadlines. Get some advice and feedback from people, so don't leave it too late. And subscribe to our newsletters. There's all sorts of information. You might find some recordings of previous events which are relevant to you, might help you with the market and everything. And the last thing a couple of things I'd like to say is small print. Scope. If in doubt, check with the lead technologists at Innovate UK. In this case, it's the competitions team and the Women in Innovation leads. They're really helpful. They're here to help you and to support you. So, we don't want you spending a lot of time on this and you not framing your application in a way that means that you've missed on the opportunity. And most importantly, at the end, I'd like to say, stand out from the crowd. So really think about how you're going to tell us about how you are special and different and why you should be funded above everybody else. And that's really it from all of us. I think we've had a couple of questions on here. Actually, you've answered those, Matt. Thank you very much. I think everything's been answered now. So at that point, I'll say that's the end of this session. Hopefully it's given you some really good ideas about how to think about and how to approach answering those first few questions on the application, and give you a bit of inspiration as well to go off and do it now. Don't leave it to the last minute, please. Can't see any more questions coming up, so real pleasure to have you all, and thanks for the great interaction in the chat box. And thank you to Matt, and thank you as well to Rachel and Solène for all the organization behind the scene.
One cheeky thing, please.
Yes, please do.
Can we move the slides like three backwards? There was one that had a lot of icons. I didn't quite catch it.
Yeah,
this
just
one.
the top
Can I
tip.
take a picture?
Yeah,
Wow.
please do. Yeah.
I love this. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is so cool. So I'll just go tick, tick, tick.
No, you're welcome. You're all very welcome, and good luck, all of you. I think we're always very sad that we have so many fantastic ideas, but we just can't fund as many. But I think the story to tell, this sort of predates Rachel coming here. In the first competition, they had so many fantastic applications that they're actually able to increase the number of award winners because of the quality of what we had. And I think the success of the program is really a reflection of success of the applicants. These programs are successful because of the quality of what you bring to the table. And if you're not successful, do engage with us, do keep at it, do look for other Innovate UK grants funds, do look at other funding that's available. There is a lot of regional support through the Innovate UK Edge, and also through sort of, if you're a technology sector, through the catapults as well. Good opportunities for collaborations coming up all the time. You don't always have to be the lead. You can be in there. It's a tough journey. You can never have enough friends. That would be my message for all of you. So just engage, network, use all these opportunities to meet people. Just having to see, can the need or challenge description be similar to a previous Innovate UK application? You'd have to be doing something substantially different in what you're asking for. But if it's sort of carries you on, or you've pivoted your idea because the market's changed or there's a need, then that would certainly be within scope. If you've got any doubts about that, Eva, then just drop a note to the competitions team and they will be able to give you some support.